what happens is, so like you're on one of those baggage belts at the airport, it's like that dictates your path in life without any question or autonomy or control. It's kind of, you don't question if there could be an alternative path. So the topic today is something that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people listening. And it's the culture that we live in the UK, and I'm sure abroad and wherever you're listening from, about living for the weekend. And so many people dread the Monday feeling. And sometimes this is referred to as the Monday blues. And that feeling on a Sunday night, Monday, you feel it in the pit of your stomach and you're just looking forward to the weekend. So Lewis, I'm sure you probably felt this as well. I know I certainly have. But what sort of feelings are associated with that term, Monday blues? James, yeah, definitely an interesting topic that I'm keen to dive into today. The Monday blues, I guess it refers to that kind of set of negative emotions that people get just before the beginning of their work week. So as the weekend is drawing to a close, that Sunday night feeling I've also heard it referred to as. And it's just a bit of a sense of dread that creeps in on a Sunday evening, and that kind of restfulness, that anxiety about the work week ahead. And it's almost like a storm cloud that starts to loom its way over as you start that work week. And so something that's quite difficult to ignore if you've experienced that. I know I certainly have. But I think contrary to popular belief, it's not just about hating work. I don't think that everybody who experiences Monday blues necessarily hates their job. That's not the case. It's often more subtle than that. It's more about the lack of control and the lack of autonomy around your time and your freedom. In the same way that a bird that's trapped in a cage, despite being safe, it's fed, it's safe. In that sense, it likes its environment. It still can't get over that feeling of being trapped away from its natural environment, right? And so people often struggle with the Monday blues because I think it's primarily due to that lack of freedom, if you had to put your finger on the real reason why it is. But they can also be to do with the concept of job dissatisfaction, right? So there is no denying that a lot of people dislike the profession that they're in and the work that they do. So the Sunday night feeling or the Monday blues can definitely be linked to a job dissatisfaction. And, if you're missing that feeling of fulfillment in the work that you're doing, that's kind of how it shows up. If you were making a really nice cake, for example, and you had one ingredient missing in the whole recipe, the whole thing's going to taste terrible, and it's the same thing. You can have a life that's got all the ingredients, but it's missing that one key crucial ingredient of fulfillment, say, through your work, and that's how it shows up. It's the Monday blues. That's its way of telling us that something important is missing in our professional, our personal life, and that sense of fulfillment and autonomy is often the reason for it. That lack of autonomy is the reason why that shows up, I think.
It was the case for me back when I was in my 9 to 5. I had that feeling on the Sunday evening, the Monday. I just wasn't excited to go to work. And it wasn't that necessarily I was completely hating my job. It was, like you say, it's more of a lack of freedom than a complete job dissatisfaction. But I knew because I wasn't fulfilled in my job, there was a real issue. And if you're the type of person like I was as well, if you think Friday is the best day of the week, I think there is a problem there, because the amount of our life that we spend working is so huge and such a huge portion of our life that we need to pay attention if we feel like we're just going through a structure that's been given to us by society to look forward to the weekend and to dread every Monday as they come around. So touched on freedom and job dissatisfaction. So do you think these are sort of the main reasons why people feel this Monday blues?
Yeah, I think so. In most cases, it probably does come down to job dissatisfaction, certainly at a surface level anyway. And that's usually due to things like long working hours that you have little control over, or just lack of control about your place of work or how that work gets fulfilled. Maybe it's about being micromanaged, or having a really poor company culture, toxic culture that you're part of. Or even just, you might like everything about it, but it's just not truly meaningful work, and you can't escape that feeling of like, I was destined for more, like surely I could have a greater impact than this. And it's a really difficult one because, it's something that you can't control in the moment. But in today's episode, hopefully we're going to be able to dive into some of the ways that you can achieve fulfillment, even in those circumstances, and what you can do to change your circumstances. I think on the other side of it, it's about work-life balance as well. I know that's a common term that people often use nowadays, but people are stuck in this paradigm of trading time for money. And despite now, I think there's been this like awakening, this realization in society that isn't the only way. And actually, that's probably the least efficient way of earning an income. It's really hard to find personal fulfillment when you are stuck in that trap of working and
thinking about work and trading your time for money, and you can't get out of it. You know, it's like if you ever worn a pair of shoes that are too small and you start walking around, you can't ignore the feeling that the shoes are hurting every single step that you take, right? It's just something that is front of mind. And so it's kind of similar when you're constantly being reminded of not being happy about your job. It doesn't matter if someone tells you, oh, don't worry about it. It takes up such a high proportion of your time in your life that you can't just brush it under the rug. You can't just forget about the uncomfortable shoes. They are a big part of your current experience of life, right? So it's really difficult and it kind of grinds you down. So I think the structure of our work week, where work is so concentrated into 5 days and, you know, personal time is just squeezed into 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, that makes the feeling even worse. It's like saying, I'm not going to eat any nutritious food over the next few weeks. I'm just going to eat junk food. You know, no vitamins, no vegetables, no nutrition. I'm just going to survive on junk food alone. After a while, that lack of balance in your diet is going to start to make you feel ill. Well, it's exactly the same with spending all of our time working. We're not going to have any of that nutrition, any of that nice free time, that autonomy or freedom. It's just work throughout the whole week. And then you end up having no fulfillment, your life's out of balance, and eventually you get ill for different reasons, right? Stress, burnout, things like that. So yeah, it's a difficult one.
It is a difficult one. I think a lot of people, myself included, I always had that feeling like, you know, I'll look after myself and I'll have a great weekend and I'll really enjoy it. But that's an issue in a way because it sort of numbs you from the lack of fulfillment that you are getting from your job, because the weekend is great and you almost put your desires, put your dreams on the back burner because your life is actually okay in the moment. It's only when Sunday and Monday come back around that you then have to be confronted by the lack of fulfillment that you get from your job. But by the time Friday comes around again, you numb yourself and you forget, and then you have to start again back on a Monday morning. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle, I'd say. So it is a huge proportion of our life, though, the work that we do. But why do we think that so many people have come to accept that living for the weekend is sort of normal and just the way it is?
It's weird. I mean, it's largely just a societal construct. You know, it's a cultural construct that we've been conditioned to accept, that the Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 grind is the default way to work and live. But I like to question, like, who says that that's the default way? Who makes the rules here? Because I think we see other people who are ahead of us in our journey. You know, when we're at school, we look up at adults or people who are just slightly older than us who are entering into the world of work. And it's like watching them step onto this conveyor belt of life. And suddenly we believe that's what we should do as well. Get onto the conveyor belt, start our careers, you know. And then what happens is, so like you're on one of those baggage belts at the airport, you know, it's like that dictates your path in life without any question or autonomy or control. It's kind of, you don't question if there could be an alternative path. You're just in passive mode. You get on the conveyor belt and you just get taken along to your destination, until eventually you get thrown off the conveyor belt when, you know, you get made redundant or you get fired or you reach retirement, for example, right at the end of it. But I always like to think, what if we didn't put our foot on there in the first place? You know, or if you're already on it, what if you stepped off? What would happen? If you look around and question, is there an alternative approach to this before I even get on the conveyor belt? Is there an alternative way to experience life? I think that's a really liberating exercise that becomes really exciting when you realize just because everybody else around me is doing this doesn't mean I have to.